Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Making Skincare. Today we're doing a really exciting recipe. This is more of a luxury recipe. This is going to be a product that you could sell for more dollars. It has some really good ingredients. We're highlighting our newly released to the website all organic MCT oil. So MCT oil is really stable. It makes a really good oil for infusions. So the first thing that we're going to do is talk about how to make that infusion for this recipe. So as you can see right here, I have my infusion. Now, this infusion is just our organic MCT oil, and then I chose a list of botanicals that I personally liked, but you guys can always mix and match, make whatever infusion you want. So this one has rose buds, lavender buds, witch hazel, hibiscus, and orange peel. And that was just a really nice blend that I personally enjoyed. It doesn't add too much color, so you kind of keep, you don't want to get it too green or musky. It can just, it's harder to package those off. It's hard to sell that. So for me, I just went with things that weren't going to color too much. You'll see that the infusion, this is just the pure infusion. MCT is probably a lot closer to being clear like this. So really clear. After the infusion, you can see it gets pretty dark. And then also a little bit of a difference, and I'll show you guys these later. This is the same recipe, but I did this infusion low and slow, and this one was heated. Both of these will be on the recipe sheet. You'll find them in the description box below. And you can see the difference. With low and slow, it stays a little bit more clear. So you're kind of looking at maybe a little bit less of an overall scent. It's not going to be quite as potent. You could leave it longer. This one I left for about 4 days. With no heat, just the oil and the dried botanicals to receive this color, achieve this color. And then this one I did heat. So this was heated just with the botanicals in a glass mason jar at I took her up to about 110 degrees. And then right at about 110 degrees, I took it off the heat and I let that steep for a little over an hour. And you can see that the color difference is a little bit more potent. The smell is certainly a little bit more potent. So it really just depends on your preference. So that's our infusion. Now the rest of the recipe contains acai oil. This is certified organic. It is really dark, but it's not going to change the color too much. Now this is an incredibly high quality oil. Obviously everyone's heard of acai. It's one of those initial superfoods that we've all heard about. This is a really new oil that we have. I'm not 100% sure if it's on our website yet, but it's an oil worth looking into getting. We're using it at a really low percentage. It is pretty expensive, but again, this is a fancy oil. This is luxury. We're looking to sell this for some bucks. Moving on, we have our Daikon and our Hemisqualane. Now, our Hemisqualane is an emollient. Daikon is kind of like a Daikon Extract. You can consider it kind of like a carrier oil. Now, both of these ingredients have incredibly luxurious sensory feel. They both are considered to be like dimethicone substitutes, but they're all natural. So Daikon, obviously, it comes from the daikon root extract, and then Hemisqualane is just an emollient. I believe it's sugar-derived, and it's just really nice. It adds that dimethicone feel without actually adding any silicones to your product. And I feel like that really dry feel, that silicone feel, can be part of what identifies something luxurious to me because it dries down so fast. It leaves the skin feeling so soft. It really is a unique sensory feel. So moving on, we're going to add just a little bit of lycopene. Lycopene is a carotenoid. It's like an antioxidant. But it's also a natural colorant. So for me, it's good to add a little extra antioxidant here. We are making an infusion, so by adding all of those botanicals, we're sort of adding more food to this product for microbials to want to attract to. So we'll be adding also our vitamin E, which we have right here. So these are both of our antioxidants. Now, if you didn't want to put lycopene, I have two examples. This was the same recipe without lycopene, and this is it with lycopene. So depending on how much you put in, you can see that you get a little bit of a color difference there. You can go really rich with it. You can go without it. It's completely up to you. If you decide to mess with the lycopene percentage at all or make changes to the recipe, I'd recommend filling in whatever you remove with your MCT. And then So let's just, yeah, I think that's all of our ingredients. So let's go ahead and get started blending. So the first thing we're going to do is take our infusion and pour it on in. And this is about, in the recipe, I think I have your guys' recipe set for 8 ounces. I didn't need quite that much to fill the jars I'm filling here in the studio, so we went ahead with 7. So same recipe, little different. Mine's just a yield of 7 ounces. Your guys's will be a yield of 8, and you can obviously adjust that recipe to whatever number of ounces or pounds you're looking to make. So for me right here, we're looking at about 4 ounces. On your recipe card, it'll be about 4.7, so not much difference there. So now I'm going to go ahead and add in the acai. Mine came out to about 0.4 for my recipe at 7 ounces. Yours is about 0.6. So we're going to toss that in there. And this is a really, really, really nice oil, so I am going to work here to get every drop of it out of this beaker. No waste. All right, so I'm going to give that a quick blend. Okay, so moving on, we're going to go ahead and add our daikon. In my recipe, I'm looking at about 1.2 ounces. The recipe you'll find is about 1.4. So again, very close. We're going to add that in there. I'm just giving it a good stir, good blend after every additional ingredient that I'm adding in here. All right, now to our emollient. I'm gonna slowly add that. Now the viscosity of this is a little bit thinner, so I'm just kind of continuing to mix as I add this one just to kind of help it incorporate. Okay. So this is kind of the color we're at right now. You can mess with the recipe, change up your oils, whatever color you're going for. We are going to talk about packaging this off in clear glass jars and giving a little added shelf appeal. So choosing a color that you're really interested in is easy to obtain depending on the different oils you add. So we're going to go ahead and add our lycopene. And as you can see, we're not working with a whole lot here. This is, in my recipe, only about 0.12 ounces. For you guys, it's also about 0.12. So here we go. I'm going to add that in there. And this is going to give that really nice, rich orange color. A similar alternative to this is like sea buckthorn oil. That also has really, really, really good, deep, rich orange color, and you can use that as a natural colorant in a lot of different oil blends. Okay. And then lastly, we're going to go ahead and add our vitamin E. Now this is our antioxidant. We're going in here at about 0.12 ounces for mine. Or I'm sorry, it's about 0.05 ounces. I got a little off on my lines there. Now the vitamin E is a little bit viscous. I don't have a hot plate in here, and you definitely don't have to do this, but if you're having any trouble, let's say your vitamin E was sitting in a little bit colder temperature, if you're having any trouble getting it fully incorporated, feel free to toss this on your hot plate or in your double boiler. Don't overheat it, just maybe 20, 30 degrees will just help melt down that vitamin E to the viscosity of the rest of your oils. It doesn't look like I'm having any issue blending that in, but if you do, you can just heat her right up. So we're only adding our antioxidants to this, but if you are interested in making this and selling this in bigger batches, something you can look into is an oil-soluble preservative, something that's going to add to the shelf life. Without a full-spectrum preservative, this is probably going to have a shelf life of around, and I'm ballparking here, probably about 5 to 6 months. But if you add something like LexGuard, I believe I think I wrote down an idea of what you guys could add in here. Yeah, I have it on your sheet, so it's in the description below. So I would recommend using an oil-soluble, full-spectrum preservative if you're planning on packaging this off, selling it in any retail fashion. That's going to give your shelf life a big, big boost, probably up to about a year. Okay. So before we move on, I kind of skipped over one very important factor of our infusion. So again, this is the leftover yield of my infusion that I didn't use for the recipe. Now, after you're done with your infusion, you're going to have to strain it, obviously. It's a lot like you're just steeping tea. In our recipe, and here at Essential Wholesale and Labs, we use something called a 1 micron filter, and that's this bad boy right here. Now, this catches everything. I didn't even have to put it through here more than once, and you can see that there are absolutely no, specks, nothing going on in there that you can see. But if you don't use a 1 micron filter, if you're doing this at home, that's totally fine. You can use a really fine cheesecloth, and then I would recommend filtering it again through possibly a double layered coffee filter. And this is just an example of what you might be left with if you do that. So this is a vanilla bean infusion. And as you can see at the bottom, and I hope that the camera's picking that up, you can see in the bottom here that there's a lot of particles. There's just some leftover residue from that infusion. So you don't want that to get in your bottles, especially if you're selling these. If you're making it for personal use, this is totally fine. It's not a problem. If you're doing this for that, that's totally not a problem. But just keep in mind that if you aren't going to be using kind of a higher quality professional grade filter of some kind, you may end up with some particles, especially from the rose buds. They do tend to leave quite a lot of powder in the bottom. So I'll show you just a quick side by side here, the difference there between a full filter, and more of a cheesecloth coffee filter kind of situation. So that's just completely up to you guys. It depends on the purpose of your project. So, just letting you know. So moving on to some packaging options. So this is the packaging that I've chosen today to pack our guy off in. Now, we are looking for luxury here. The whole purpose of this oil is to hit that luxury market. So something that you can do and that I really recommend is adding some botanicals to your jar. And I'll show you some examples before we pack this off. So my favorite, and I'll show you my favorite first, was these calendula leaves. And as you can kind of see here, the calendula leaves are so light that they really suspend in the oil. Whereas I tried another alternative here where I used some hibiscus, and you can see they don't stay in suspense for very long. They kind of just fall to the bottom. They're a little heavier than the oil. And these are the exact same batch. I think that's really interesting. Just the weight of the botanical. It makes it look like this version is more viscous, whereas this one's pretty thin, when really it's just the weight of the herb that I decided to put in here. So there's definitely more options that have this same effect. There's tarragon leaves and saffron. There's mint leaves, witch hazel. There's a lot of different dried herbs you can choose from for that. I think in this one, in the one that had the lycopene over here, I chose just a single rose petal. And I think that could work. I don't know that it works in the airless jar, but if you did it in something like this, or even something like this, I think you can certainly get away with a simple, full flower like that. I mean, really, this is just completely up to you and your aesthetic and your marketing. So these are definitely the packagings I would say are most appropriate for this product. Again, we're going high luxury here. This is a really nice oil blend, and it's not the cheapest oil blend either. So something thick, something of quality. You want a glass jar with a glass dropper, and you may even want to consider pre-printed silk screening on your packaging if you are planning to sell these. All right, so fun part. Let's get this guy packed off in here. So I'm just going to use a normal funnel here for this. And this is a batch. This is going to fill more than these. So I'm just going to fill this one in the video, and I'm going to pack the rest of this off later. And go slow. I have been guilty of going too fast in these and overflowing my jar many a time. Okay. And then these ones always leave a little bit of room in the neck for your, see, I didn't leave quite enough room in there, so I'm just going to toss a little bit back out for your dropper to go in. And there we go. And so you can see that those calendula leaves just really add something special to this packaging. You can silk screen it. You can use a transparent label. I wouldn't use a full label if you're going to do this. You don't want to cover up those beautiful botanicals with a label. And you can see that the shelf appeal of this is incredibly, incredibly beautiful. So let's test it out. So this is a I would call it very similar to a dry oil. So those dimethicone substitutes, the hemisqualane and the Daikon, that sensory feel I'm talking about is really that, as opposed to other more traditional heavier oils, which have a place, those are incredibly hydrating for your skin. It's just not what we're working with today. These dry down almost immediately. So I've had these samples at my desk for about a week now, and I've just been, testing and using the product throughout the week. And within 20 seconds of application, I can go back to typing on my keyboard, using my mouse, touching my face, my hair, and it dries down really fast, but you still feel like the product is there. It leaves a wonderful feeling. Anyone who's used Benefits Professional or anything similar to that, this can be very similar in sensory feel to that. It would make a great makeup primer. It's a good just daily use oil. It's good for hairstyling, adding a little bit of shine. There are a lot of different marketable uses that you guys can have fun with for this product. Okay, well, I hope you guys loved today's recipe. Please like our videos, and if you'd like to see more, hit the subscribe button down below. The full recipe sheet, which looks like this, can be found in the description below as well. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time.